The bungalow was halfway down a pleasant tree-lined avenue in Ballygunge. The tip-off, badly spelled on a fragment of yesterday's evening paper, had been shoved through the local police station's letterbox at some point in the night, and the constable sent to check it out was lying in a pool of his own blood a few feet short of the bungalow's door. The men wanted for the Chartered Bank van robbery were presumably still inside. It was getting dark, McCall noticed. If a breakout was contemplated, it would have to be at night. Not that darkness would help whoever was inside. There were almost 100 armed police in the cordon that surrounded them. He wondered how many of them there were. 5 men had taken part in the robbery, but there was no way of knowing how many were holed up in the building opposite. They'd ignored Tyndall's megaphone appeal to surrender and offered no reply to one unauthorized shot through a window. McCall might have doubted they were there at all if it weren't for the occasional twitch of a curtain. That and the lifeless body in front of the door, which was rapidly merging into the shadows. He and Tyndall were in sole possession of the bungalow across the street, having sent its Indian owners to a place of greater safety. Everything in the large front room looked English, the furniture, the books, even the decorator's choice of colour, but it still felt foreign. Was it the faint smell of Indian spices, or something less tangible he didn't recognize? Looking around the darkening room, McCall knew that most Englishmen would see such cultural mimicry as a sign of the Raj's strength, so why did he feel the opposite? A whistle screeched outside, followed first by the crack of a single shot, then a full-blooded fusillade. As McCall stepped toward the window, it exploded in front of him, showering him and Tyndall with fragments of glass. Feeling as if he'd been stung by 100 wasps, with blood coursing down one cheek, he took a second to realize that his eyes were still working, and that 3 Indians were racing toward him, Mausers in hand. The rifle fire was almost constant now, and 2 of the Indians were hit almost simultaneously, blood and brain erupting from their shattered skulls. The 3rd man was only 10 feet from the gaping window, eyes wide and straining every sinew, when McCall squeezed the Webley's trigger and put a bullet through his chest. The man stumbled to his knees, offered McCall a last triumphant sneer, and plunged face first into the bone-dry earth. As their myriad cuts slowly healed over the next few weeks, McCall and Tyndall watched the Juganta campaign expand. There were several more dacoities in broad daylight. A judge and a senior policeman shot down by lone assassins at either end of Chowringhee Road, and strong rumours that a number of prominent local businessmen had given Juganta large sums of money rather than suffer a similar fate. The few men arrested proved as loquacious as the dead van robbers, and the search for an actual German connection in Calcutta seemed elusive as ever. In mid-June the monsoon arrived. At first it felt like liberation, but soon McCall was remembering what old hands had told him in May, with that peculiar English delight in sharing bad news, that the rains would actually be worse. And they were right. The heat, which showed no sign of abating, was now accompanied by frequent downpours and levels of humidity that literally took the breath away. Half the people McCall met seemed sick in one way or another, and 2/3 were scratching some part of their anatomies. Eczema, impetigo, prickly heat. Calcutta seemed to be hosting an itching contest in which participation was compulsory. Insects loved such weather. First there were weeks of ubiquitous green flies, then a plague of little black beetles that emitted a dreadful smell when crushed. As their frustration grew, and rather to his own consternation, McCall found himself liking the locals less and less. On one hand, the general Indian disinclination to support the authorities' campaign against the terrorists made it hard to trust those he didn't already know, while on the other he found himself increasingly irritated by the sycophancy of those supposedly on his side. After losing his temper with one perfectly amiable Indian constable,